Hello everyone, you're watching Firstpost America. I'm Eric Hammond, we're live in Washington, D.C. We end the week exploring Donald Trump's first few days back in the White House and how it's playing out beyond the nation's capital. We'll bring you all the latest coverage, but first, the headlines. ICE officials arrest more than 500 illegal migrants and deport hundreds of others in a mass deportation drive days after President Donald Trump was sworn in for a second term. Hundreds of protesters raid a government office in Mexico seeking justice for the killing of 2 children in an attempted carjacking in the troubled state of Sinaloa. Afghanistan's Taliban government denounces arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court over the persecution of women as politically motivated. The Taliban says the International Criminal Court should instead prosecute the United States and Israel for causing wars. China to kick off its Lunar Year travel in high gear with 9 billion trips over the course of 40 days. The country will begin celebrating the new year next Wednesday. And Boeing expects a loss of about $4 billion in the fourth quarter of 2024. Last year was marred by a production quality crisis, supply chain delays, and regulatory scrutiny. We begin in the United States, where President Donald Trump faces his first roadblock after a judge blocked his executive order ending birthright citizenship in the United States. Judge John Kofenauer, a federal justice in Seattle, has called the presidential executive order blatantly unconstitutional. This comes after at least 24 Democratic states sued to block the order, citing that it violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Now, the 14th Amendment states that all persons born or naturalized on U.S. soil are subject to the jurisdiction thereof and are citizens of the United States. However, President Trump is attempting to upend black letter law by providing citizenship only to children born in the country where one parent is already a citizen or a green card holder. For now, the executive order has been blocked temporarily, with Democrats calling this move by the White House a violation of the rights that are guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution.
We are thrilled that the court saw the seriousness and the urgency of the complaints and requests for a temporary restraining order brought by the state of Washington, Oregon, Arizona, and Illinois, and are thrilled that the judge issued a temporary restraining order directing the United States government to take no further action in enforcing and implementing the unconstitutional and un-American executive order attempting to eliminate birthright citizenship in America. This is step one, but to hear the judge from the bench say that in his 40 years as a judge, he has never seen something so blatantly unconstitutional sets the tone for the seriousness of this effort.
The temporary block does have a nationwide impact and will be applicable for at least 14 days, preventing federal agencies from implementing or enforcing the executive order.
Well, as we laid out today, so we moved for a temporary restraining order, which has a nationwide impact. The next step will be at a preliminary injunction, which will allow for more thorough briefing. The TRO that was issued today has a 14-day effective date. So for 14 days, the United States government can take no further action implementing or enforcing this order. Well, we will be back in court, as will many other people across the country.
Meanwhile, President Trump said he will appeal the decision by the Seattle judge.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Mr. President, a U.S. judge temporarily blocks the birthright citizenship order. Do you have any reaction?
No, obviously we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
Now, as the battle over birthright citizenship heats up, the Republicans have introduced legislation in Congress that will codify President Trump's birthright executive order into law. It looks like this is just the beginning of a legal battle that could only be settled by the Supreme Court. Staying in the United States, on Thursday, President Donald Trump said he always had a great relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The commander-in-chief spoke about the call with his Chinese counterpart last week, where the two discussed TikTok, Taiwan, and trade.
He called me, but I see it very good. I think that we're going to have a very good relationship. All we want is fairness. We just want a level playing field. We don't want to take advantage. We've been having massive deficits with China. Biden allowed it to get out of hand. He's $1.1 trillion deficit. It's ridiculous.
Now, separately speaking to Fox News, President Trump said he would rather not put any tariffs on China, then went on to say that his tariffs do have tremendous power. Now, this is, of course, a major U-turn from the commander-in-chief's previous intentions about handling the trade imbalance with the world's second largest economy. In fact, throughout his re-election campaign, Donald Trump threatened Beijing with tariffs ranging between 10 and 25%. Meanwhile, China has repeated its willingness to work with the Trump administration to avoid a trade war that would be centered around tariffs.
China's position on the tariff issue is consistent. Tariff measures are not conducive to China and the United States, nor to the entire world. China is willing to work with the United States to promote the development of China-U.S. economic and trade relations in a stable, healthy, and sustainable direction in accordance with the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation.
Meanwhile, President Trump said that he wants China to play a more proactive role in ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Now, it must be noted that during the re-election campaign, the Republican had vowed to end the war on day one of taking office.
Hopefully, China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia, Ukraine. They have a great deal of power over that situation, and we'll work with them. And I mentioned that during our phone conversation with President Xi, and hopefully we could work together and get that stopped.
Meanwhile, the status of TikTok remains uncertain despite President Trump helping prevent the popular Chinese-owned app from shutting down. A nationwide ban on the app was extended by 75 days on the 19th of January. However, finding an American buyer still remains a challenge. The President Xi reportedly raised the issue of TikTok with President Trump, and the two leaders have agreed to find a solution soon. Once an advocate for banning TikTok, President Trump has now taken to liking the app. Similarly, President Trump was once quick to threaten China with tariffs, but is now reconsidering his approach as he completes his first week in the White House. And staying with President Trump's U-turns, the commander-in-chief said that he hoped the Iranian nuclear crisis could be solved without military confrontation. Now, while speaking to reporters from the Oval Office, President Trump said that it would be good for the Middle East if Israel doesn't carry out airstrikes against Iranian nuclear sites. The president also added that he'd like to offer a deal to Tehran and hope that the Islamic regime takes it. However, he went on to clarify that it would be okay even if Iran declined the offer.
I would say Iran is a different story. I will be honest with you. Iran is a whole different thing. That's a religious deal that is very dangerous. That's very, very dangerous.
Now, President Trump's erratic foreign policy towards Iran goes back to his first term in office. Then he sanctioned Iran and withdrew from the nuclear pact signed between Tehran and world powers back in 2015. That curtailed the Islamic regime's nuclear ambitions in exchange for economic benefits. In 2018, President Trump accused Iran of spreading terrorism in the Middle East, and his airstrike order on a senior Iranian general in 2020 plunged bilateral relations to an all-time low.
The Iranian regime supports terrorism and exports violence, bloodshed, and chaos across the Middle East. That is why we must put an end to Iran's continued aggression and nuclear ambitions. They have not lived up to the spirit of their agreement. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States. America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail.
Now the Mercurial Commander-in-Chief is backtracking on his previous demand for direct strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, despite calling for them just 3 months ago during his re-election campaign.
They asked him, what do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran? And he goes, as long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff. That's the thing you want to hit, right? I said, I think he's got that one wrong. Isn't that what you're supposed to hit?
Now, Trump has also accused Iran of trying to assassinate him and threatened to blow the country to smithereens.
We've been threatened very directly by Iran, and I think you have to let them know, because the best way to do it is through the office of the president, that you do any attacks on former presidents or candidates for president, your country gets blown to smithereens, as we say.
Not even in office a full week, and already Donald Trump is making contradictory statements on Iran, despite once calling for the complete destruction of the Middle Eastern nation. President Donald Trump's controversial policies have been hitting the LGBTQ community very, very hard. In fact, on Thursday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly issued a directive ordering his staff to halt all passport applications with the X sex marker. Americans who don't identify as either male or female use this marker on federal documents for the past 3 years. However, with the Trump administration now only recognizing male and female genders, it seems like the existence of the gender-neutral sex marker has come to an end. Here's more from Foggy Bottom.
I, Donald John Trump.
U.S. President Donald Trump's return to the White House is nothing short of a nightmare for the transgender community. Day by day, his administration is rolling out measures to crack down on the rights of transgenders and snatch away their identity. On Thursday, Trump's Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly ordered his staff to halt all passport applications in the U.S. which have X written where they're supposed to mention their sex. The marker signals that the person does not identify as either male or female. Now, any applicant seeking to change their sex marker will not be entertained as well. But that's not all. Rubio also directed his staff to use sex instead of gender on federal documents, including passports, visas, global entry cards, and consular report of birth abroad documents. Rubio's order concluded that an individual's sex is not changeable, forcing trans people to use the marker they were assigned at birth. The directive changing millions of lives comes after the inauguration of the new president, where he said the U.S. government will officially recognize only two genders, that is, male and female.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Trump also signed an executive order on the first day of his presidency narrowing down gender identity and imposing biological classification on people who do not want to be perceived like that anymore. Meanwhile, it is unclear that what will happen to the current passports which already have an X marker. But what's clear is that Trump's executive order is dismantling former President Joe Biden's efforts to be more inclusive of America's gender identification. The State Department began issuing the X marker on passports in 2022 after a long legal battle by Dana Zim, a non-binary and intersex U.S. Navy veteran, who sued the government over the gender-neutral marker issue back in 2015.
On Transgender Day of Visibility today, the United States affirms that transgender rights are human rights. We celebrate the achievements and resilience of transgender, non-binary, gender-conforming persons around the world. We recognize their bravery and their hard-fought work for equality, inclusion, and the full recognition of their human rights. We celebrate the diverse expressions of gender and full diversity of gender identities around the world. We also want to highlight, as the Secretary announced in a statement earlier today, the historic milestone the Department has reached in its work to better serve all U.S. citizens, regardless of their gender identity. Starting on April 11th, U.S. citizens will be able to select an X as their gender marker on their U.S. passport application, and the option will become available for other forms of documentation next year.
Till now, Americans were not required to match their marker with their gender on citizenship documents, photo IDs, or medical documentation. However, with Trump coming to power again, Biden's fast-moving progressive gender policies have been put into reverse gear.
And we end the week with Trump's new bestie, Elon Musk. The billionaire buddy of President Donald Trump is witnessing a decline in his popularity in the United States. In fact, a recent poll reveals the tech mogul's popularity took a nosedive after assuming charge of the Department of Government Efficiency. Half of the population doesn't want Musk to advise President Trump on federal budget cuts. However, despite this, the world's richest man continues to hold an influential grip on Donald Trump's inner circle. Our final report has the latest.
Elon Musk, the world's richest man. The leader of several successful tech companies and a crucial ally of President Donald Trump.
Victory feels like.
From dominating the front page headlines to securing an office at the White House, Musk has done it all. And his influence is such that his one tweet can make or break a deal. But do Americans treat him equally important, like the newly inaugurated president? Well, the latest poll tells a different story. According to the Wall Street Journal, the tech billionaire's popularity is dwindling.
Take over, Elon. Yes,
He is not as favorable as he was before the November presidential election. Half of the American population doesn't want Musk to advise Trump on crucial matters like budget cuts, even though he is now the sole head of the Department of Government Efficiency. Only 39% people think Musk feeding Trump ideas on government spending is actually a good thing.
Oh, let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. You know, he spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning.
But how did Trump's apple of the eye reach here? First things first, Musk's appointment as a White House advisor has polarized public opinion. His firms hold billions of dollars worth of government contracts, raising doubts about conflict of interest. Musk's political leaning has also turned away some of his former supporters, as only 6% of Democrats feel positively about him. Additionally, his recent social media moderation policies promoting divisive and extremist content on X have also irked many.
Come here, Elon.
Interestingly, Musk's popularity decline isn't limited to the US. A YouGov poll shows 71% of Brits hold negative opinions about the Tesla CEO. Musk's interference in the UK politics and contentious remarks about Prime Minister Keir Starmer have contributed to the negative sentiment. But even with waning popularity, it's no secret that Musk continues to hold immense power in Trump's inner circle. Reports say Musk was the main reason behind Vivek Ramaswamy's divorce with Doge. And he recently picked a fight with Sam Altman, challenging Trump's support to OpenAI's $500 billion AI project.
To create a new industry centered here.
Related to your AI, EO, just hours after you made that big Stargate announcement, Elon Musk tweeted that they don't actually have the money. Is that true?
I don't know if they do, but, you know, they're putting up the money. The government's not putting up anything. They're putting up money. They're very rich people, so I hope they do. And I mean, Elon doesn't like one of those people, so.
Are you worried that AI is going to replace many American jobs? Does that worry you?
No, it's going to create tremendous numbers of jobs. It's going to also create a lot of benefits medically for cancer research and other things. It's going to have a huge positive impact. And we're ahead of China now because of what I'm doing. and I think it's going to be very successful.
And with the president endorsing him as a prominent figure in both business and politics, a little downward trend of popularity doesn't seem to hurt Musk at all.
That's First Post America for this Friday. I'm Eric Ham signing off in Washington, D.C. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on First Post.